Welcome. Good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you to today's virtual event presented by National Black MBA Metro New York Chapter. My name is Norvell Barrington. I serve as your president, and we are having a wonderful Black History Month. There's so much to talk about. So much happening. This year has been tremendous. This month has been incredible. Even this week, we are coming to you from various locations. Today, we're coming to you virtually from the confines, of course, of your home. However, we are going to be focusing on the one place that in the world where it's second to none, which is Broadway. Yes, New York City. Again, we're going to talk about the business of Broadway. Phenomenal opportunity for you to understand the nuances of Broadway, the performing arts section, the production, the unions, the marketing, the advertising, how Broadway actually generates money, and more importantly, how does Broadway impact not only our economy, but ultimately how do we use Broadway as an opportunity to tell our own story? We have a all-star cast here that are going to give their perspectives, not only their perspectives, but also their experiences to share with you about the business of Broadway. Of course, National Black MBA focuses on opportunities for growth, social economic growth across all of our channels. Our lifestyle channel is no different. On behalf of Vina Morris and the entire Lifestyle Committee, we welcome you to the business of Broadway. I'm filled in for Vina Morris. Again, we are going to talk about the business of Broadway. I'm looking forward to introducing our moderator and learning more about our all-star cast across Broadway. Now, before I get into some introductions here, again, if you can use the chat feature for any comments, questions, we want to get your feedback. We want to know what's going on, what your take is, your involvement into Broadway, your opportunities, your interests. For those of you who have not attended the Broadway show, we want to know that as well. So this is a good opportunity to explore opportunities not only for you, but also individuals that you may know that are interested not only in attending Broadway events, but more importantly, how to look at Broadway from the perspective of being the economic driver, not only for businesses that you're looking to create, from the creative side to the production side to the marketing side, so on and so forth. So this is a great opportunity for us to engage. And I have the honor of introducing our moderator for today, Harriette Cole. Harriette Cole is a best-selling author, motivational speaker, media trainer, professional public speaker, coach, and a veteran in the field of communication. She has offered various training sessions, executive training on media training to CEOs, corporate executives, entrepreneurs, entertainers, and students. Among her clients are Spotify, Hunter College of CUNY, Vice Media, AARP, BET, Warner Records, Columbia Records, and the list goes on and on. She has founded her academic educational platform, Dream Leapers, in 2016. Dream Leapers was designed to help people access and activate their dreams through public speaking training, life coaching, etiquette training, content development, confidence building, all things that are important not only to our community, but as you go up in your professional career, as you have these changes, these are all critical skills that are needed. And if you need to reach out to Harriet, we'll definitely make that connection for you. Harry is recently named Director of Programming for Kahila. Harry has been working with the Broadway League for about 5 years, and we're going to talk about what the Broadway League is on diversity initiatives, including Black to Broadway. So without further ado, I want to introduce our guest for today, our moderator, which is going to introduce our all-star cast. Harriette Cole, welcome to today's virtual presentation. How are you doing today?
Oh, really well. Thank you. It's an honor to be with you and wonderful to be part of this dynamic organization that you are leading. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, shall I introduce the panel? I want to start by saying the introductions are going to be a little healthier than normal, not too long, but these are people who really have made a tremendous impact in Broadway. And I'm going to venture to say that many of you may not know who they are. So I'm going to introduce them one by one. And then as I say their name, Norville will bring them in. And I'm going to give you a bio so that you have a sense of the power brokers who are part of this group. So I'm going to start with Alia Jones Harvey. She is the Olivier Award-winning and four-time Tony nominated producer. She spent the past 15 years mounting productions on Broadway and on London's West End, with a focus on people of color on the stage, on the creative team, in management, and as investors. We're going to talk about that. Jones Harvey and her producing partner, Stephen C. Bird, have blazed a path as the only two African American lead producers on Broadway since the pioneers of the 1970s. Jones Harvey made her Broadway debut in 2008, producing the first ever African American revival of Tennessee Williams' Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, directed by Debbie Allen, which became the highest grossing play that season. Bet you didn't know that. Front Row, her company, followed up with the multiracial revival of Tennessee Williams' classic A Streetcar Named Desire. They then co-produced Horton Foote's The Trip to Bountiful, starring Cicely Tyson, who won a Tony Award for her performance. Bird and Jones Harvey then co-produced Romeo and Juliet, featuring Orlando Bloom in his Broadway debut alongside Tony Award nominee Condola Rashad. Front Row brought Danai Gurira's Eclipsed to Broadway as the first play helmed by a female playwright, director, and featuring an all-female ensemble led by Academy Award winner Lupita Nyong'o. The production received 6 Tony nominations. Bird and Jones Harvey partnered with Cirque du Soleil Theatricals to produce Paramore, the first Cirque du Soleil musical on Broadway, co-produced Iceman Cometh on Broadway, directed by George C. Wolfe and starring Denzel Washington, and co-produced American Son on Broadway, directed by Kenny Leon and starring Kerry Washington. Front Row then co-produced 12 Tony nominee Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations for Broadway, and also running now Get Up, Stand Up, the Bob Marley musical on London's West End, and MJ, the Michael Jackson musical on Broadway. The list goes on, but hello, welcome, my sister. Welcome, Alia.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see you. And I'm going to introduce the rest of the panel, but I wanted people to have a sense, what you've done is historic. And so that's why I wanted to take a moment to say. So let me introduce our next panelist, who is Rashad V. Chambers, producer. Welcome, Rashad. Rashad is an award-winning producer, talent manager, and lawyer. A licensed attorney in New York and Connecticut, Rashad is the founder and president of Esquire Entertainment. His Broadway producing credits include American Son, Ain't Too Proud, The Life and Times of the Temptations, Betrayal, The Inheritance, Caroline or Change, and The Music Man. Rashad also produced the world premiere of It Happened in Key West in London. His first feature film, True to the Heart, won 4 awards at the Long Island International Film Expo and was an official selection at the Big Apple Film Festival. In addition, his short film, Hunger, was an official selection at the Urban World Film Festival and Latino Film Market Festival. Rashad attended Morehouse College, where he graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in Business Administration. He also earned his JD and MBA degrees from the Ohio State University. Rashad is a co-founder of the Industry Standard Group and served as the program mentor for theater producers of color. He is a board member of On Broadway Performing Arts Training Program and Houses on the Moon Theater Company. Welcome, Rashad.
Hi, thank you for having me.
We are so happy to have you. And now let us welcome Shireen E Anderson. She is a producer, media relations, and marketing executive. She has been working in the Broadway/off-Broadway industry since 2008, when she worked on the first Color Purple Broadway production. Over the years, working at Walker Entertainment Communications Group, and now with Realemm Public Productions, Cherine has worked on Tony Award-winning theatrical productions to market to a multicultural audience. Current productions now include the 2019 Tony Award-winning show Hadestown, MJ the Musical, and upcoming productions Paradise Square and For Color Girls. If I listed all the shows Cherine has worked on, we would be here all night right here, but you get the gist. Cherine also was in the inaugural class of Theater Producers of Color, where she was one of the 25 participants from an application pool of more than 300, as she now enters into the world of producing. And I'll tell you one more thing. Shireen is the co-founder of Impact Broadway, a multifaceted youth audience development program focused on empowering multicultural students to become active participants in the theater community. Impact Broadway has empowered more than 700 students to view theater and the arts through a new prism of history, belonging, and ownership. Welcome, Shireen.
Hello, it's good to see you, Harriette.
You too. And our final guest, member of our panel, Janine Scott. She is the Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion for the Broadway League. Janine is an executive diversity, equity, accessibility, and inclusion leader with a collaborative and comprehensive vision that has enabled organizations to transform their internal and external practices. With more than 20 years of equity work experience, nearly 15 of those years in arts administration, and a lifelong passion for the arts, Janine serves as the Broadway League's first Director of Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. She works alongside League staff and their 700 plus members to ensure the effectiveness of its EDI initiatives focused on audience development, community engagement, and the workforce. As a crucial member of the team, Janine leads the efforts to achieve equity, diversity, and inclusion while creating a Broadway that reflects our communities and country. Welcome, Janine.
Hello, thank you.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. As all who are gathered can hear, we have a dynamic panel. What you all have done is drop the mic before you even get started talking. So thank you for all that you do, because you're going to be able to share with folks what this means. Now, I want to provide some context for people. A lot of people may be aware of this. When COVID happened, one of the most devastating impacts for people who love the arts is that Broadway shut down. Mm-hmm. And people didn't have a clue what is going to happen. You know, sitting in a theater close to each other, how are we going to ever get back to Broadway? And for Black folks, there was already a lot of rumbling about how can we do a better job? How can we have more Black people engaged on Broadway and all the different roles that exist? And then it got shut down. And so I want to start with an understanding of where we are now, because there's a sense of a reset. You know, the Broadway League was working diligently to try to do better, to make a better presence in all the ways that it can, to engage all of the businesses that come together on Broadway. Other organizations have cropped up to wave the flag and say we need to make an effort to do better, be better. And 7 productions, 7 plays opened up this year, historic. And yet we're still in what some might call a fragile position. So, Alia, I want to start with you, because you've been in this game for a long time, and in a very significant way. Can you just give us a sense of where we are at this point, where Broadway has just reopened, and how is the world of Blacks involved in Broadway being affected right now?
Well, hello. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to see everyone on the panel. I would have to say that I was most impressed with how the Broadway community used the time when we were shut down, which was over 18 months. This was unprecedented, of course, and the community came together on several fronts to try to address some of the issues that we face as Black people working on Broadway, and some of the issues that we are trying to address in attracting audiences to Broadway. Having 7 playwrights debut work in this season, seven Black playwrights debut work in this season was also unprecedented. It was exciting for for everyone in the community to see all of these playwrights have Broadway debuts, and to put in perspective what that means for playwrights that debut on Broadway. It means more exposure. It means more opportunity for their work to be produced regionally in amateur settings. It means more opportunity for their plays to be published because it's a stage that gives them that much exposure. So many playwrights are trying to achieve that level, and that entree, that Broadway debut gives them some cachet in making those inroads. And so the other piece that I guess I would tout is that during the time that we were shut down, we did a lot of cathartic evaluation of how we could be better as an industry. Starting with unconscious bias training, because backstage people were talking about how there was a feeling of not being included backstage. There was a feeling, and so I guess the way that I look at this season and opening of this season is that we are not on a fresh slate, but we have made major leaps forward in trying to reform an industry that was already trying to be one of the most inclusive industries. We're the industry that's trying to present the stories that people haven't heard before, and so this is what has, I guess, developed in this season.
Thank you. Shireen, I want to go to you because I know you market these productions. And I remember growing up, my mother would come from Baltimore on the bus with her girlfriends. Every year. She doesn't come now because she's 92, but she stopped about 5 or 6 years ago. They come on the bus. They come from church. They come from all around. And yet the numbers of Black people coming is still relatively small. Talk about how we get the Black community to be invested in coming to plays, and also sticking with this notion of where we are now, because folks are still tentative. COVID isn't gone. Mm-hmm. So what are the things that you find are important in order for Black folks to feel that the door is open and they are welcome, historically and today?
Yeah, sure. So, I have to, my colleague, Richard Pelser at Realemm Productions, started this hashtag that says Broadway is for you. And so it's so important that, our community feels as if Broadway is for you, because, it takes a risk, right? It takes a risk to leave your house, to come down to a Broadway show, to make sure that you're fully vaccinated, and, and to spend your dollars to support a Broadway production. And a lot of times, sometimes our community, takes a while to come out, right? So our job is to make sure that we are promoting, and that means whether we are advertising in the various community newspapers, such as Harlem News, Amsterdam News, the New York Beacon, Our Time Press, Caribbean News, the list goes on. So that's number one, right? We want to make sure that these shows are spending their advertising dollars in newspapers and platforms, social media as well, where our community are going to see the ads, right? Whether it's the Griot, the Root, etc. That's one aspect. Another thing is being in the community itself. Prior to COVID, of course, a lot of shows were doing various promotions, at various events. You can't really do that right now because we're in COVID, but there's other ways to do that. So whether that is on a virtual space, in something like this that we're doing now. So bringing cast members with each other to do a virtual panel to talk about the show so that communities can hear about it. Whether, that is putting ads on radio. Yeah, there are people who still listen to radio, believe it or not, as well as making sure that advertising dollars are being strategically spent in terms of television stations, so shows that the African American community watches, programs that we watch to make sure that, you know, they are informed about a show. And what's important is that our community needs to support a show in its early stages, you know, especially now, right? We can't wait until we hear a show is going to close and then we're like, oh my God, I got to support the show. That's way too late. You have to support the show while it is in previews and while it is in production. It is so key, because how a show survives and thrives and stays is that those dollars, those sales dollars that comes in is paying the cast members, it's paying the people backstage, it's paying the Schuberts or the Nederlanders or the Jomansons. Those are houses that that are owned by those companies that put on the shows. So the money that is spent in terms of sales is what coming in early. And I stress the word early. And I know that Rashad and Alia would agree with me, in order to keep a show going. So, you know, when we start advertising a show 6-8 weeks out, don't wait until the second week to purchase your ticket. Start buying your tickets now. You know, a lot of times our community likes to hear word of mouth that a show is great. Well, sometimes you have to take a chance, right? That a show is going to be great. And so, you know, it's so important that we have that support from the community early to make things happen.
Yes. And Janine, I remember when we did focus groups about 5 years ago for the Broadway League to get a sense of what do Black consumers want? What more do they want? What are they looking for in order to be more engaged with Broadway? Exactly what Shireen said was part of it, that they want to see the ads in their community, on the bus stop where they are waiting for the bus, or the subway, or, you know, and that the stories would be our stories, at least some of them. And quite a change has occurred at this point, right? I mean, there are a lot of stories that are our stories, especially with these 7 plays that opened, and even the musicals. I mean, there are multiple musicals on Broadway that are featuring Black entertainers. What would you say, Janine, that the Broadway League has seen change in the past few years to address the inclusive question that everybody is asking?
Right. Well, I think in part in hiring you early on, Harriette, to launch some of these initiatives. Hello?
We hear you.
Okay. Okay. Sorry. My screen just went black, so I apologize.
We see you and hear you. Go for it.
Oh, okay. All right. One, in hiring you though, Harriette, early on, when they were first starting out with like the Black to Broadway, and building on that. When I started about 8 months ago, the first thing I did was a listening tour, and it was to speak to not just those members, but to speak to the actual community, the consumers, especially the community of color, and to say what opportunities exist. What would you like to see with Broadway, and how can we create a more inclusive atmosphere? And most of what I heard was, one, the accessibility, not just with costs, but just with proximity. And sometimes we have to recognize that Broadway itself can be a barrier. And how do we address that? And so how are we getting out to the communities? How are we communicating with those communities and doing a better job of communicating to those communities, not just the shows, but also the business of Broadway? So looking at the workforce development side, and how are we promoting the jobs that are behind the scenes and not necessarily just on the stage? So like the general managers, the producers, the stage managers, company managers, and those types of positions. So again, this EDI initiative has been a part of the Broadway League since 2013. And I think a lot of people would be really surprised to know that this has been an area of focus of the Broadway League long before the murder of George Floyd. But what I will say that, the murder of George Floyd, what I think that and when you add COVID to it, I think that it really gave us a moment to I think someone said reset, and to look at our practices. And so not just doing the unconscious bias training, but having the board go through anti-racism training. And it's not just a one-stop shop. It's not like you just take a class and all of a sudden you're no longer have those types of tendencies, but it's about educating and continually educating these individuals that serve on the board who are making these types of decisions on what the audience gets to see.
I'm glad you mentioned board members, Janine, because that it is important for the folks at the top to get the training, not just staff members. And boards are very important in helping to guide the steps of any organization. To receive anti-racism training means they got to see it up front, which is very important. So I'm glad to hear that. I want to go to something that you said and go to you, Rashad. You have 3 roles, not just producer, but you're producing, you are an attorney and a talent manager, juggling those 3 roles in a space where there really are not that many Black people. What is that juggle like for you? And I know that you and Alia have worked on some productions because I see those names that are shared names. But we'll start with you, Rashad. What juggling those different roles and being able to make a presence for yourself in this space, how did you do that?
I just kicked open the door, to be honest. You know, when I came here, there were no Black producers on Broadway. I didn't know many Black talent reps. I just used some transferable skills and had a dream and just was really tenacious about it. And luckily I had a lot of support and, you know, from allies that really helped me along the way. But, you know, it's not easy navigating spaces where you don't see someone that looks like you, but I just didn't let that be a deterrent. I really just tried to stay true to my own vision and my own dreams and goals, and just sought out to create a path for myself that was unique and that aligned with my own artistic integrity. And then fortunately, you know, people like Alia came along a few years after I moved here and showed people that, you know, people of color wanted to come to the theater. And not only are they coming, but that the show could be successful. And I think that that sort of paved the way for many people to come after and be able to create new content. Because I believe that Black audiences want to come to the theater, but they want to see themselves reflected. And if we market to them and we create unique narratives, they will want to come and they'll keep coming.
And thank you for sharing it from that perspective, Rashad. Alia, I want you to talk about what it means to be a producer and to be a producer at the level where you and your business partner have reached. Because a lot of it has to do with investing a lot of money and it's pretty risky, right? So what does a producer do, and how does it work for you all to be where you are and to have reached the level that you have? Can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I love that I'm talking to the Black MBAs because you'll understand my spiel on what a producer does. We are the CEOs of startup businesses. And, you know, in the thriving 2018-2019 season, there were 38 startups that brought shows to Broadway. And so what did that mean for, you know, audiences? That meant there were 13 new musicals in that season. There were 21 new plays in that season. There were 4 special engagements, you know, where you had concerts on Broadway or things like that. So all of these offerings really sum up to be small businesses that are each going from idea to forming a team that can bring that idea to fruition, engaging talent that can bring that idea to fruition, and engaging investors that can bring the capital to make that idea into reality. And so, you know, and I think in the bio, you read that distinction. there are many types of producers on Broadway, and it's sometimes confusing when you're outside of the industry and you see lots of titles thrown around. And I'm not a lead producer on many of the shows that I get involved in. The lead producer is that CEO who has all of that responsibility, writing the checks, raising the money, writing the checks, and the head honcho. Any issues that happen on the show, that producer's got to be there to correct and make decisions quickly. And I emphasize oftentimes that raising the money is the daunting task of being a lead producer on the show. When you talk about a Broadway play, you're talking about, $4 to $6 million. When you talk about a musical, you're talking about 10, and now you're upwards of $25 million. So it's not small potatoes that you're talking about putting together when you have this idea that you want to helm a Broadway show.
And Alia, how risky is it? Because, you say there are 38 startups. Typically, in the world of business, most startups do not succeed. And so you do need to have deep pockets, because my understanding is that people often do lose money. So you have to love this, because it's your love of the business more than
right.
your desire to make money. How often are there success stories in terms of the business of the production?
Well, the 80-20 rule, I think, has been long standing on Broadway, that 80% of the shows don't recoup their full investment back to the investors. But that does not mean, so 20%, so 20% of the shows. So let's say 8 shows in that season. And the reason, of course, that I go back to that season is that's our last full season to really look at. 8 shows in that season were hits, and those investors are still smiling, to this day, that they got involved with those shows. And when a show is a hit, economically for an investor, it can generate multiples of return on their investment. But for the other 30 shows, that were not necessarily shows that recouped, it does not mean that the investors saw none of their investment back. Many of those shows might have returned 75, 80% of the original investment to the investor. And so it's sometimes a little deceiving when you hear that, 80% lose their money, but they don't lose all of their money. Many shows close after some time running on Broadway, and then they, are beneficiaries of residuals that come in from those shows over time. So,
and are the regionals, Alia, are they typically before, or can they also happen after a show is on Broadway, even if it's not the most successful show? Do they often go on tour after?
The musicals often go on tour after. Some of the plays go on tour, and it generally has a lot to do with whether or not the Broadway cast is interested in continuing with the show. And on the musicals, you can mount a new company, and people are not necessarily buying tickets to see the cast members in a musical. In a play, it's oftentimes and Cherine could probably speak more to that, but oftentimes you're promoting the people that are in the play, and as much as you're promoting the content of what the play is.
Great. Thank you. I want to go to Rashad. As you started and there were no other Black producers, how challenging was it to open those doors when it's a very closed industry, very, very small?
Mm-hmm.
Even if people don't intend to be biased based on race, it's just small.
Mm.
And it's that handshake. It's seeing somebody in their house in the Hamptons and maybe you don't have one? You know, how did you forge relationships in the beginning?
For me, it was just by doing work. You know, I didn't move to New York and just say and plop down on Broadway and say I'm a producer. You know, I really worked on developing new plays and new musicals and sort of spending my own money doing small readings and little workshops and really learning how to develop a show. And through those presentations, I was able to invite potential producers, invite potential investors, and really network that way. So by the time that I got to do American Son or Ain't Too Proud, I had a bit of a social network, and I was able to go to those people and raise money fairly easy. I mean, I had never done it at that point, so it was a skill set that I had to nurture. But it's really about sort of sharing your vision and allowing people to be a part of your art. And I think that's what a lot of people forget. You know, we concentrate so much on the money, but a lot of people want to just support good work and good art. And a lot of people think that, you know, you have to be a millionaire to be an investor or a producer. And that's not true. You do have to have, you know, certain assets that you can afford to lose money in the event that it's one of the 80% that is not successful. But, you know, the minimum investment for a Broadway play or musical is usually $25,000. Sometimes it's 50. You know, I talk to friends who are like, I've always been interested in investing, but I thought it was like $100,000 or $200,000. I'm like, you can put that in if you want, but that's not the minimum. And so I think we just have to also just sort of dispel myths and really have forums like this to talk and to know that it is possible to share in the art, and it's possible to make money, even though it is risky. And as Alia was saying, you know, it's not just about making money on Broadway. If a show closes and gets licensed and then people start picking it up and doing it in Chicago or Detroit or Texas, you know, you as an investor in the Broadway show will be a part of that. And you'll get what we call subsidiary rights for a length of time after the show has closed. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but I think
No, that's so helpful, Rashad, because, you know, I'm sure many of the people who are part of this organization invest in lots of different things. You know, many invest in art, you know, art that hangs on the walls. This is another art form. And what you just described, that it could have legs, especially once it leaves Broadway or even leading up to Broadway, is something that is probably news to a number of the people who are listening. So I'm glad that you did mention that. Shireen, I want to go to you. Your company, Realemm, what good name, right? you're looking to Realemm, get folks to come. And this is one of the things that, you know, if we don't go, you mentioned it from the beginning, if we don't go, then some of the productions may not be there. And also we miss out on the opportunity to engage in this art form. What are the challenges today in getting people to go when we are having intermittent outbreaks of COVID and the tickets are still expensive? I mean, that's one of the things that people talk about a lot, that it can be prohibitive. But I think, I mean, we know we spend money on a whole lot of different things. So what does your company do? What do you do to help people to understand that this is a value add?
Sure. So the company is actually owned by Tony Israel. She's the CEO of the company. She and I actually worked together when we were both at Walker International Communications Group. And we have a large team of about maybe 14 people that's part of the company. And so, you know, there's different areas. And so one of the challenges, of course, that we face, number one, of course, we're in the middle of COVID, and we have to convince people that, you know, it is safe to come to the theater. Everybody here, I'm sure on the screen has been, everyone is, you know, masked up. You have to show that you're fully vaccinated. You can't just have one shot. You have to have both shots. There are a couple of times I know people have shown up and they've only shown one shot and they get turned away. So you have to be fully vaccinated in order to come to the theater, and everybody is masked up. Number two, I would also say, as you mentioned, is cost, right? even though it's still in it's COVID, and you think, oh well, they're coming back, they want to lower the prices, but as Alia said, we've been dark for 18 months, right? So we've got to bring back the show, and we still have to pay the cast. So one thing is, a lot of times shows are a little bit more inexpensive during previews. So if you can come out and purchase those tickets during the preview time. Number two, when you see those ads in your community paper, some of those ads may have a special code. We don't use the word discount. We say special code. Some of those ads may have a special code. Utilize those special code. And also, half the time you can bring a group to shows, right? So it's always great to have your friends. Most shows are 10 or more is a group. Group prices are usually a little bit less than individual prices. So come on out. We're working on MJ. This is a great example. I've been texting for the last 72 hours with someone who wants to come and see MJ. And she went on telecharge and she saw the sheets that she wanted. She wanted 12 tickets. So I thought she wanted the $89 tickets. She goes, I want row R, row S. So you have to go through a third-party company in order to do this. And they came back and they said, well, row R and row S is not $89, it's $139. I said, okay, let me tell her. And and she goes, oh no, I know, it's $139. I want those tickets. I want all 12. I said,
Good.
okay, not a problem. And
Good.
she was able to secure the exact seats that she wanted and paid her $139, and she's going to go see MJ for the second time because she went with a friend and she loved it so much that she's bringing 10 more or 11 more friends.
You're bringing up a really good point, Shireen, which, I've gone to Broadway. Well, when I started really immersing myself in it, there's something so special about going to see a Broadway production, to see a live production, and to see it more than once. And if you go in previews and then a little later and you see how the actors are kind of owning their roles even more, it is fascinating. And many of us have binge watched TV like crazy. This is different.
Right.
It's a magical experience, whether it's a play or a musical, which I certainly recommend. Janine, I want to go to you and ask the roles. Let's talk about some of the roles that exist on Broadway, because we know many people think of the actors, the performers, the singers, the dancers, the performers. Many people don't even know they're costume designers, they're lighting technicians, they're directors, stage managers, house managers, all these different roles. Can you talk about what the roles are that can be an entry point? And to the extent that what is Black representation like in those roles?
So, well, I'm going to answer the second question first. There's not much representation, and we will be doing an audit so that we can actually have hard numbers, because right now this is just it's just an educated guess based on what we're eyeballing. But shortly we'll be able to tell you exactly what those numbers look like, but not at this moment. There are so many roles, and I say this all the time. There's hair, there's makeup, there's choreographers, scenic design, lighting design, audio visual, there's stage managers, there's stage hands, there's company managers, general managers, ushers, concessions, individuals who are selling the tickets. So there are so many, any job. And then when you look at the arts administration side, and there's finance, there's marketing, there's human resources, there's EDI directors, there are attorneys who deal with the unions and negotiations with the unions. There's also government relations that deal with lobbying and things of that nature. So any job that you would see in the corporate world or in the quote unquote real world can also be found in Broadway. And we need more people of color. I think that, I mean, I fell into arts administration. I didn't know that this was a thing. You know, I was going to be a dancer, or I was going to be a dancer on Broadway. And my parents were like, no, you're going to get a job. You're not going to make any money being a dancer. And I'm like, okay, fine. But then I ended up finding my way into this arena anyway, and I had no idea. And I think that's the problem, that a lot of people of color don't know that there's actual jobs on Broadway, and we need more people of color.
Absolutely. There are a number of questions in the chat, so I know we're going to get to those in a moment. Alia, I want to ask you about becoming an investor. I know that there are people who are participating in the audience who are interested. We piqued their interest. What does it take? How do you learn about investment opportunities? You know, for people who are hearing this and going, wow, I would like to consider that. What's the next step?
So they're often, it is a very closed community, as you mentioned, and there is no very public way that you will find out about investment opportunities in the future, other than we announce that we're developing shows pretty often. That's one way that you might get an insight, and you'll see those announcements on playbill.com or broadwayworld.com, where we announce that we're developing something for the future. And in that case, you can reach out to the production companies that are listed as the lead producers on the shows. Oftentimes, I know Rashad has many things that he's working on. I know Cherine has projects. I have projects. And if you ask us what we're working on, we're very happy to share with you what investment opportunities we have, you know, in our briefcase. So that's often how you get involved. There are readings that are held that may be an opportunity for you to see something that's being developed for the future. So getting an invitation to a reading will give you a taste for what it will be once it does reach Broadway. There's also, I mean, for plays, you might just be sent a script, and you might be sent investor documentation. I think the other thing to keep in mind is that the way that Broadway shows are structured financially, they're structured as partnerships, and they're structured as private placement partnerships. So that means that, it's not a public offering like a stock purchase that you may do. It is a private placement opportunity that is restricted to high net worth investors. So investors with net worth over $2 million that can be demonstrated beyond primary household. And so just keeping that in mind, that is the structure that you are looking to invest in. And then, as I said, reaching out to any of us, we're very happy to give you more information about shows that are coming up that we know about that you may be interested in. And that's often the way that you will get invited to invest in one of these private placements.
So I'm going to put you all on the spot and say, if you're serious about that, Alia and Rashad, any of you, put your email addresses in the chat. And I'll say to anybody who writes to them, don't write unless you're serious, y'all. They're busy. But this is your opportunity. That here are people who are working on projects for all of you. If you have something that you can share, this is a wonderful opportunity to do that. There's another question that came in the chat. I think, Shireen, perhaps you can answer this. Is there an email list, particularly for Black Broadway shows, that people can be added to? How do you know?
So we develop our own sort of email list, right? And we get that list from if we do a tabling event at Harlem Week, If we have a list of people that we normally invite to a preview show, and then they tell their friends, and then they reach out to us. So that's how come we develop our list. You know, a lot of times the bigger agency also purchase lists, right? So they have a huge database of folks that they would send out mailings to by zip codes. So you know, if you wanna be added to our email list, put your email in the chat, and I'll be more than happy to add you to our email list. Absolutely.
That's good. So make sure that you explain what it is that you are putting your information in, so that folks can ask the right question. Here's another question: how can you audit when they're mostly contract players? I'm not sure who is the right person. Perfect. How can you audit when they're mostly contract players? Who can answer that one? Okay,
so
good.
when we're looking at when I'm talking about the industry audit, we'll look at a season. And so it would be all the shows that ran for X period of time. And each show would be charged with looking at their crew, their cast, and the individuals that support what said show. So that's how you're able to get that type of audit. We can't just do all stage managers that exist. It would just be whoever is active during that season, and that's how we would get those numbers and how they identify.
So Janine, I know that the Broadway League, with your direction, is beginning a podcast to shine a light on more people of color who are involved in Broadway. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it launched, I'd say, I think maybe 2 weeks ago, and it's called the Black Business of Broadway, intentionally. And we talk about the Black business of Broadway. So we talk to Black professionals who are on the business side of Broadway. We will talk to some individuals who are actually like on stage as actors, but the primary goal is to promote those producing, the directing, the stage managing, the company management, to promote those positions and to promote positions at the presenting houses. So just like Alia and Rashad talked about how shows tour, and they tour at different houses or performing arts centers. So we're highlighting those jobs that are on the road as well, because they're also a part of Broadway. And it's an opportunity for people who may have an interest to learn about the mentoring programs that we have that exist at the Broadway League and nationwide through the different performing arts centers if they're not based in the tri-state area.
So tell us, because mentoring and internships are very important for getting your foot in the door, and especially for young people. What are the offerings that the Broadway League has now?
Yeah, so I'd say young and young at heart, because some people, as you'll hear through the podcast, came into the game a little bit later than others. So there is, if you want to talk young, there's the high school shadowing program that are for students who are in high school who have an interest in arts administration. There's the fellowship program. There's Rising Stars, a Rising Stars program. Then there are also some that like BTU and BTC and BAC and the Industry Standards Group.
So probably we don't know what those acronyms are.
I'm sorry. So Black, you're right. The Black Broadway Advocacy Coalition has some internships and some programs. So you could reach out through them. All of these entities have Facebook pages, and I know Rashad, are you a part of BAC? I know you're a part of the Industry Standards Group because you're one of the founders and theater producers of color. As I read your bio, right?
So yeah, Rashad, pick up on that, because people want to know how they can connect, what they can do. So could you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, we've been very fortunate to have a lot of organizations starting new positions and new fellowships for people of color. Theater Producers of Color is mostly an education program, but Black Theater Coalition and the Theater Leadership Project, they are both creating either 1 year or 3 year positions for people of color, and specifically Black people, to work in various aspects of theater and the arts. We see many people of color directing or producing, but we don't often see people of color being a general manager, who's the person who works on the budgets, or marketing. There are no Black casting offices, so they're trying to create positions for people of color so that we can get immersed in those jobs, make a livable wage, and be able to learn the craft so that we can eventually be able to open up our own offices and be able to really expand the network that we have. We want to get away from the days where we had all Black people on stage and then everybody else on the creative team was white. We really want to permeate the entire production with diversity. And so the organizations that Janine is mentioning and that I'm mentioning are a first step in that, to be able to come to New York to work, make a livable wage, not having to go to work in a day and cater at night. You know what I mean? Really being able to have a prestigious position with the Broadway elite, designers and casting directors, et cetera, and be able to really learn.
I see another question. How is diversity improving amongst musicians on Broadway? Or is it?
I think it is. I'll just jump in. I mean, I think there is still work to do, but I know several shows have made a sort of pact that, they're going to have a certain percentage of musicians of color in their pit. And I think more need to do that, but it's growing. And I think that we have to continue to hold producers, directors, music directors accountable so that when they're putting together their lists, they're really casting a wide net. We can't use the excuse anymore of, oh, we couldn't find anyone, when there are so many people out there. And, throughout the course of the pandemic, people were starting lists. People were starting databases.
Yes.
You can go and find a sound designer of color. You can go and find, an MD of color. So those resources are out there. We just have to work a little bit harder and communicate what we need in order to get them.
So we have just a few minutes left. I'm going to go around and ask each of you to share this one thing that you would like for folks to know as they leave this moment about Broadway and perhaps about what they might be able to do. What would that be? Starting with you, Alia.
I think that it's an exciting time, as I started with, because I am seeing a lot more faces of color leading shows, producing shows. And for me, that means that there are more faces of color behind the scenes on shows, investing in shows, and on stage. And so it's an exciting time with a lot of different options, a lot more options in a season than we've ever seen before. And so it's unprecedented that we see this. Keeping in mind that Broadway has 19 shows open now, and there are 13 opening in April. So there's an exciting opportunity to see a lot of new shows this spring. And your support is what keeps, our industry going. And every ticket that you buy is keeping us employed in the industry. And so I look forward to seeing you on Broadway.
Wonderful. Shireen.
So I'll give a little nugget. So it's my understanding that the first Broadway show to make its money back was in 1921, full-scale musical called Shuffle Along. It had U.B. Blake, Noble Sissel, Josephine Baker, Paul Robinson, and more. And I don't know what the marketing plan was back in 1921, but the marketing plan in 2022 is I'm going to implead all of you all, support the shows. Buy your tickets early and support the shows. Not every show is going to have Denzel. You don't have to market a Denzel Washington play because, Denzel, I'm going to buy a ticket. But it doesn't matter. It was Denzel or somebody else. Support your shows, buy your tickets, bring your friends, bring a group, support the shows.
Thank you, Shireen. Janine.
I think I want to say that there are jobs here on Broadway. There are positions here on Broadway. We need you. We want you. We are a very welcoming community. And I too am optimistic, to piggyback on what Alia said. I am optimistic about the direction that we're going in, and seeing all the new faces in this industry. It's great. It's great. It's been amazing, and I would like to see even more colorful faces in the future. So there are positions here. We want you. We need you, and we'd love to see you, not just in our audience, but behind the scenes, helping us move this forward.
And before I go to Rashad, please, panelists, put your email addresses in the chat if you want folks to get in touch with you. They're asking for that. They're hungry for, and I would say email addresses, and also the websites for your businesses and the not-for-profits that you mentioned. Rashad, what would you like to leave us with?
Yes, just piggybacking on what Janine said, I love the word community, because that's really what we are. You know, this is such a dynamic industry, and I believe it's the heartbeat of New York City. You know, when Broadway was shut down, the city just wasn't the same. So I really implore you to get involved with the Broadway community, whether it's investing, whether it's, you know, some other type of job. And even if you love what you do now and don't want to get involved in that way, please just come support. You know, we need audiences. We need ticket sales. It is safe to come back. And honestly, there is nothing like live theater. You can be having a bad day and go into a theater and those lights go down and you just get transported to another world. And there's just nothing like it. So treat yourself to Broadway.
I could not agree with you more. Like I said, the electrifying experience that I've had every time I walk into one of those theaters. You know, we don't like wearing masks, but it's okay to wear a mask and get treated to all of something happens in your cells, I feel like. Don't you agree? It's like something amazing happens. And we thank you so much, each and every one of you, for coming and sharing just a little bit about what you do. Thank you for your commitment to this work and for proving that we are in it. We are in it in big, important ways, and we appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. And thank you for sharing with this community. I hope that all of the people who are listening will take a step, buy a ticket, consider investing, you know, get involved, get your young people involved. Shireen mentioned her organization. Rashad mentioned another one. There are lots of opportunities, as did Janine. There are lots of opportunities for young people to get involved. If you get involved when you're young, it helps to open doors, and we don't even know what will happen next. So thank you very much. And I guess we're going to turn this over to Norville.
So there's so much to take away from this event. I feel like we have been spoiled with such great, rich information, and it is very important for us to honor the people who are in the fields, who are actually doing the work, but also making sure that they are reaching forward, they're reaching back, they're reaching down, they're trying to pull as much people as possible. I mean, there is a economic factor which we cannot deny, but there is something about hitting the soul, about something that represents our culture, something that represents who you are, and how you can see yourselves. And the performing arts, specifically as it relates to Broadway, is an instrument, is an important part of the fabric of New York, of the United States, and of this world. Um, I have to say that I am just pleasantly I'm so ecstatic about this event. I want to thank Shireen E Anderson, who was very important and instrumental in bringing this event together. Rashad Chambers, thank you very much, sir, for your contributions, and I'm looking forward to meeting every single one of you. I want to thank Alia Jones Harvey. Learned so much about the producing side and ultimately the investment side as well. Janine Scott, the work that you're doing in diversity and inclusion is so important. And when it comes to our moderator, Harriette, Cole, thank you so much for not only stirring the conversation, but ultimately driving us to think about Broadway from a different lens. This is not the first nor the last time you're going to see these individuals with our chapter, with our organization. We are planning some important events as the year as we transition to warmer weather, as we transition to different laws. We want to give you an opportunity to get more involved in terms of the opportunities in Broadway in different areas, whether it is from the corporate field, behind the scenes, the labor side, the investment side. All things that are mentioned are all key aspects of Broadway, and the focus on the business of Broadway for our people is going to be critical. So, on behalf of our executive board, on behalf of our vice president, Vina Morris, on behalf of our lifestyle committee and our entire membership, my name is Norval Barrington. I serve as your president of the Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA. We want to thank you so much for joining us today for the Business of Broadway. Look forward to connecting and sending you information regarding all the emails and all the contact information, all the individuals that were in this session. More importantly, we're going to send you some information on how you can get involved, how you can put your dollars to use, and how you can put your minds in a place where you can go ahead and learn about how you can be in the opportunities of the Business of Broadway. So thank you so much. Have a wonderful day. We look forward to seeing you this week for our next couple events, tomorrow and Thursday as well. Look out for emails and additional information about those events. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining the Metro New York chapter of the National Black MBA. Have a wonderful, wonderful evening.